The battlefield was a graveyard of fire and steel, broken tanks smoldering, alien corpses strewn across the mud, and above it all, silence heavy as death. Soldiers watched in disbelief as the human knelt beside a wounded apex predator, its monstrous form snarling weakly through blood and smoke. Instead of finishing it, he pressed his hands to its wounds, whispering steady words, stitching life back into a creature bred for destruction. The others thought he'd lost his mind, until the predator's eyes met his with something more than instinct. That was the moment they realized it wasn't just a beast. It was his companion, his weapon, his war brother. When the war began, nobody believed humans would last a week. The sky burned with plasma storms, entire cities drowned in fire, and the alien legions marched across worlds like an unstoppable tide. They called themselves the Vaethra, giants with skin like steel and voices that carried the weight of thunder. Their claws tore through armor, their ships blotted out suns. But humanity had one thing the Vaethra never understood: our refusal to surrender. On the shattered world of Drainos, where forests smoldered and rivers boiled, Captain Elias Hale led the last pocket of resistance. His armor was battered, his rifle scorched, and his lungs burned with smoke, but his eyes never faltered. Around him lay 100 wounded, soldiers too broken to stand, and beside them, a girl the Vaethra had dragged in chains. She was young, blue-skinned, her eyes glowing faint teal in the gloom. She had been a healer of her people before the war, forced to watch her kin turned into slaves, her hands bound instead of free. When Elias cut her chains, she didn't believe him. She thought humans were just another conqueror. But then she saw him lift a bleeding soldier with his bare arms, refusing to rest, refusing to abandon anyone. For the first time since the invasion, she whispered hope. The Vaethra came for them at dawn. The ground quaked beneath the march of armored beasts, their roars echoing like thunder rolling across a battlefield that had already seen too much death. Elias looked at his ragged men, then at the alien girl, trembling but standing with them. He knew they wouldn't survive the day, but survival wasn't the goal anymore. It was buying time. When the Vaethra descended, plasma fire rained like molten rain. The forest lit up in blue explosions, trees crashing, earth torn apart. Elias charged into the storm, his rifle spitting light, his voice rallying men too exhausted to rise but too loyal to let him fall. "Stand with me. For every city they burned, stand." His words carved fire into their hearts, and they answered with fury, dragging themselves into the fight. The alien girl stood back, hands glowing faintly with the remnants of her healing gift. She had never used it in battle, never dared, but now she placed her trembling hands on dying soldiers, pulling them back from the edge even as tears streaked her cheeks. She had no reason to save humans, yet she did, because Elias believed she was more than chains. Hours bled into carnage. Elias fought like a storm made flesh, bayonet flashing, grenades thundering, his armor dented beyond recognition. He killed giants with nothing but grit and steel, covered in blood not all his own. Yet every wound he took, he rose again, as though some unseen fire burned brighter with every strike. His men followed, shouting his name until the air itself trembled. But no human can fight forever. When the Vaethra warlord arrived, towering, plated in obsidian armor, eyes like burning suns, Elias knew the battle was ending. The creature lifted a blade the size of a tree, its voice booming across the broken battlefield. "This world dies with you, human." Elias stood his ground. His body shook, blood dripping from a dozen wounds, his rifle long since shattered. He turned his head once, to the blue-skinned girl standing among the wounded, her glowing hands pressed to a soldier's chest. Their eyes met across the battlefield. She mouthed a single word: live. He smiled. Then he charged. The clash was thunder. Steel met alien alloy, sparks blinding in the smoke. Elias drove his bayonet deep, but the warlord's blade tore through his side. Blood poured, but he didn't falter. He screamed defiance, driving forward, pushing the monster back step by step until both were locked in death's grip. His men watched in horror as the warlord's blade struck again and again, yet Elias would not fall. Not until his final strike. With a roar that shook the heavens, he plunged his broken weapon into the beast's throat. The warlord collapsed, choking on its own black blood. But Elias did not rise. The battlefield fell silent. The Vaethra, leaderless, staggered then broke. The humans, half dead and burning with grief, surged forward, driving them into retreat. Victory was theirs, but the price was a hero's life. The blue-skinned girl stumbled to Elias, dropping to her knees beside him. His chest barely moved, each breath a ragged whisper. She pressed glowing hands to his wounds, her power sparking, burning through her veins until her vision blurred. But it wasn't enough. He placed his bloodied hand on hers, shaking his head. "You can't," she choked, tears streaking down her luminous cheeks. His voice was weak, but steady. "Don't waste it on me. Save them. Save all of them." Her hands trembled as his grew cold. The man who had freed her, who had fought like a god among mortals, lay dying in her arms. She bent low, forehead against his, whispering through sobs, "I'll carry your fire. I swear it." When his final breath left him, the dawn broke, a cruel light over fields of ash. The humans buried Elias on the hill above the battlefield, his broken rifle laid across his chest. The alien girl stood among them, her hands clenched, her face streaked with both dirt and tears. For the first time, they looked at her not as an alien, but as kin, bonded in loss. In the days that followed, she stayed with them, tending wounds, singing soft hymns in a language they did not know. But her eyes always lingered on the hill where Elias rested. She kept his name alive, whispering it like a prayer before every battle. She carried his legacy, the unbreakable will of humanity, etched into her heart. And when word spread across the stars that a human captain had slain a Vathro warlord with nothing but courage and steel, it was not his death that echoed most. It was the sight of a blue-skinned healer standing among his men, carrying his banner forward. For the galaxy would learn what the Vathra never understood. Humans do not fight for conquest. They fight for each other. And sometimes, they fight for those who never believed anyone would fight for them.